That's no moon, that's Lunastra. She is not just a Teostra spray painted blue, and is easily among the most difficult enemies currently in Monster Hunter World. Her damage output, when not even tempered, is enough to two-shot a build without high fire resistance, and even if you do have that fire resistance, it can get a little dicey. So what can you do to ensure an easy and excellent ending for this Elder Dragon? That is what we are here to find out. First off, to harken back to the point about fire resistance, you should bring a lot of it. At least 5 fire resistance in your base set if you want to avoid getting one-shot by the stronger abilities. Though, the higher you go, the easier it gets. Her physical damage is comparatively quite low to the other Elder Dragons, which makes her fight much more akin to Kirin in the way of focusing your elemental resistance. If you want to avoid death, putting 3 fire resistance jewels into your set and eating yourself a vegetable platter will give you 35 extra fire resistance and will lower your damage intake considerably. If you want to see a serious example of how useful fire resistance is in this fight, here is a diagram showing the damage from Supernova, but not the big explosion. This is from a single tick of the heat damage that you take between the 2 explosions, which you take frequently and in small hits. It may not seem that massive, but if you look between the pink lines on this picture, you will see the difference that the 2 fire resistances will give you. The high fire resistance is a significantly smaller tick. That is 1 tick. That adds up. On the note of resistances you can stick in your build to make the fight easier, you can actually use wind pressure resistance. Is technically good against her, as she does attempt to blow you back and flinch you whenever she uses her wings to fan the fire. But building that into your set for that does seem a bit silly, let's be honest. Though if you happen to be a hunting horn main or know somebody with a hunting horn, you can get this effect for free. If you want to focus less on defense and more on offense, then you should be aware that Lunastra is particularly weak to ice, with a full 3-star weakness, although you may have trouble getting consistent damage on her with weapons that make good use of elements. Why? Her weak spots are the head, the tail, and the wings. None of these spots are particularly safe to stand in, with the easiest of those 3 being to go for the head from within the armpit, as with Teostra, the safest place to stand with a melee weapon is the pits of her bright blue arms. As for ranged weapons, the struggle is surprisingly increased, as the devs have decided to go out of their way to put in a mechanic that only affects ranged ammo. Ranged weapons of all types, be it bows or bowguns, will find their ammo bounce off of any enlarged fire patches on the ground. While this isn't a straight up counter by any means, and you can still fight her with a ranged weapon, it does mean that some of your shots will simply do 0 damage if not aimed perfectly to weave between the patches. Other than the fact that her weak points are somewhat high up and dangerous, and her mechanic of blocking ranged attacks, there is no particular downside to using any specific weapon, so as with pretty much anything in Monster Hunter World, bring whatever weapon you like most. Just don't bring a fire weapon. You will literally make the environment harsher for yourself. A good start when talking about Lunastra's abilities and mechanics is one that will seem really obvious from the start, though it has a surprising amount of depth. Most of her abilities will leave behind small patches of blue fire that look sort of like Tails' blast powder clouds, except they're blue and they won't explode. However, they will melt down your health over time if you stand in them if you have not had a cool drink. Did he just say you don't take damage from standing in fire if you have a cool drink? That's right, people. If you have a cool drink, you can stand in the small fire patches without any worry of damage. Look at my health bar, it is not going down. Though the large patches will still deal damage.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Hitting the small patches with a water weapon will remove them, while hitting the small patches of fire with a fire weapon simply extends them and makes them more dangerous. This effect will also happen if Lunastra herself decides to blow some fire their way. Something to be wary of and always keep in the back of your head is the timing between Lunastra's attacks. They seem to hit a perfect spot where if she does happen to hit you once, her next attack will likely be right at the exact moment you are able to move again, which is unfortunately also the exact moment you are capable of taking damage. That means if you are not extremely careful, just getting hit once, even if it's not a one-shot, can lead to a combo that kills you before you can heal anyways. A quick note on the detail of her personality. I absolutely love that she spawns about 20 feet away from where Teostra would spawn, patrolling exactly towards where he would be if he was on the map. It is a beautiful, slight nod towards their bond. Aww. What about that fancy new mantle that makes you automatically dodge attacks, sort of like a reverse aimbot? How does the temporal mantle work for you? Well, if you're asking in the context of Lunastra's Supernova, it looks fantastic, but efficiency-wise, it's mostly just alright. The best way to deal with the Supernova is either to run out of range if you're far enough away when it starts, or to do 2 or 3 Superman dives in a row. Doing one before she hits the ground negates the main explosion damage as well as the heat damage while you stand back up. Then, if you immediately do the same again, it covers a load more heat damage and potentially also the second explosion, leaving you with the minimum amount of damage possible, as if you are anywhere even remotely close to her when she begins this move, you will have to take some sort of damage. The reason that I said 2 or 3 instead of a consistent number is because the time between the first and second explosion is variable. You'll have to use your own judgment and stop dodging when she's done the second explosion. If you stand up before the second explosion, you'll probably take the second explosion, which is painful. A special thanks to Astera Jerky, as it straight up heals red health, and even aside from Supernova, which it's great for, by the way, just look at this. This fight causes so much red health that Astera Jerky is just ridiculously good throughout. Shopkeep, you're a true hero. Things to note about Lunastra's Supernova and about the fight in general. Lunastra's ground fire is based on a tiered system. Small fire hit by other fire becomes big fire. Big fire hit by other fire does a small explosion of fire around it, which also happens to cause small fires to turn into big fire and make the other big fires explode. It causes chains. What Supernova is, mechanically, is just a massive circle of fire. If the ground is clear when it starts, this isn't a huge problem. However, if there is even a small amount of small fire on the ground, you will have a crazy chain reaction that makes the ground uninhabitable. She becomes significantly more dangerous the second there is fire on the ground. Flash pods are a surprising detriment in this encounter. While perfectly timed, and I do mean perfectly timed, as the window is incredibly small, Flash Pod can interrupt her Supernova if fired between her starting the actual blast animation and hitting the ground. Using a Flash Pod at any other point while she is flying will not grant the expected results. She will not fall to the ground knocked over for free damage, and will instead more often than not land and then immediately take off for a Supernova. This appears to not happen if you flash her when she's changing areas, so you can keep her in the same area, but it happens extremely consistently if you fire it during combat, though not 100% of the time. I honestly believe the times that she doesn't turn it into a Supernova might be a bug, as the interaction where she does do the Supernova happens about 85 to 90% of the time in that situation. Other moves to watch out for. Lunastra has 2 moves where she will fire out regular fire breath and then fan it with her wings to create large groups of her actual fire patches. Again, if she hits these patches with another fire attack, they will become enlarged. The first of these moves is a blindingly fast frontal blast. Holy crap, that was fun to say. Blindingly fast frontal blast. Blindingly fast frontal blast. Blindingly fast frontal blast! Where your best odds of survival are either being in a position where you were already moving when she starts it, or to just dive to the ground as fast as you can and accept that you'll probably take a small amount of heat damage when you stand back up. The second move is a sideways blast, which, while much slower, covers a significantly larger area, about 33% of the space around her, to whichever side she does it. If she does do that move, your best bet is to get to the opposite side of her, or even just behind her or in front of her. She has a number of moves that are very similar to Teostra's moveset, but just different enough to catch you off guard and potentially kill you. One of these is the tail swipe. It is almost identical to Teostra's except for 2 things. The first of which is that she can choose to only swipe her tail once, instead of the rhythmic couplets which we are accustomed to from Teo, which, if you are expecting a double, can lead to your extermination. As you may expect her to do a second one, and instead she will switch moves entirely, and while you're thinking you're safe, maybe drinking a potion, who knows what you're doing, she'll do another move with blinding speed that will take your head off. She also does a variation of the tail swipe, whether it's 1 swipe or 2, where when she's enraged and covered in her blue powdery stuff, the tail swipe will leave behind active fire patches, just the little ones, but again, these can be extended into the large ones, which will damage you. Teostra does a fire breath where he just sort of waves his head from left to right. It has a really obvious telegraph that most people are used to by this point, whereas when Lunastra does the same telegraph, she'll actually do an attack where she turns her entire body in a half circle clockwise while spitting out fire. It's relatively easy to deal with if you know the move, as you just have to move to her left side, and none of the fire will hit there. It always goes from front to the right, clockwise. Personally, I love this move, as the half circle of flame is really a crescent moon, which just fits into her design so beautifully. Speaking of her love of crescent moon shapes, she does the exact same ability while in the air, one of the 3 moves that she can do while in the air, where she just breathes fire down under her in exactly the same pattern, the clockwise half circle, though sometimes she can do it twice in a row, making it more of a full moon of fire. The easiest way to deal with this is to simply give her some space. She can't move when she's decided to do the ability, so if you move away from her a little bit, she won't be able to hit you. However, you can also do the opposite and move directly under her, because she still can't hit you with that move when you're directly under her. It's a line of fire, not a blast of fire. The second move she can do while in the air is identical to Teostra's air pounce. Just homes in on where you are when she starts the animation, just run to the side a little bit, do a little dodge, you're perfectly safe. The third and final move she can do, while by herself at least, is the Supernova itself, which we have already gone over. Technically, there's a 4th air move in the form of the bonding attack with Teostra, which is essentially just a super powerful, super-powered Supernova, which you can deal with by just getting the hell out of there as fast as possible when the notification pops up on the right side of your screen. If you are too far in, or simply don't notice the notification quick enough, your best bet is to simply Superman dive at the right timing and pray the Supernova bond away. Other than these moves, she has a few moves that are just identical to Teostra's, and should be super easy for you to deal with. Just general swipes, general jumps, nothing too fancy. Just a little tidbit of information that there is no difference between normal Lunastra and tempered Lunastra, aside from the fact that she will kill you significantly harder. One last thing to note is that she is an absolutely obscene health pool. This fight is a marathon, not a sprint, and you need to focus on staying alive. She has the potential to kill you without you having any idea exactly what happened, whether that be through a single powerful move or 3 or 4 less powerful moves chained together before you can create space in front of you to heal. Play it safe until you are 100% comfortable with her moveset if you want to kill her. Before we cap this off, to go to a less serious note, I really would like to say that Lunastra is an absolutely fantastic fight. As somebody who's only started playing Monster Hunter in World, not experienced previous iterations of Lunastra, this current version is amazing. When I first saw her, I was worried that it would just be a rehashed blue Teostra, but oh man, she's just so much more than that. It's ridiculous. The focus on moon shapes in her attacks, the mechanics of her little fire pools with all the chaining abilities and blocking range, and just the culmination of her design, both in a gameplay and an aesthetic sense. It's absolutely gorgeous. Lunastra has easily made my top 5 monsters in this game. In summary, if you are going to go the elemental route, use ice weapons. If you are going to use ranged weapons, be aware that the enlarged fire will block your shots. Fire resistance is your best friend. Play slow. Prioritize avoiding attacks over damage. Don't immediately go for a heal after getting hit. You may have to dodge another attack instantly. And finally, be aware that she has a bunch of moves that she will use to absolutely murder you. And she won't hold back. I'm Cotton Dinosaur. This has been the Lunastra Fight Guide. Like if you liked it, subscribe for more, and most importantly, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay sweet.